In this episode of American Greed, why he died that night. He's a fellow comic book collector named Rico Vendetti, an entrepreneur who runs a block of small businesses on Rochester's north side.
At Clifford and Goodman, Mr. Vendetti had a pizza place called Papa Van's, and he also had a bar, Algreen's.
In the 1940s and 1950s. Vendetti is interested in knowing more. He sends a middleman to Medina to inquire, but the man comes back empty-handed. Marciniak doesn't want to sell. So a new plan begins taking shape in the mind of Rico Vendetti. If he can't send someone to buy them, he'll instead hire someone to steal them. So Vendetti approaches one of his boosters to case the place. The booster sees for himself how old and frail Marciniak is, and he refuses to do the job. A second booster says no, right off the bat.
They had informed him we could kill him doing this, and it's not worth the risk. So they had the conscience comes into the picture.
25-year-old Arlene Combs works for Vendetti at his pizzeria called Papa Van's and has been shoplifting for him for a few years. So Vendetti asks her if she's interested in making a little money, about $2,500 bucks.
Over the course of the next few weeks, Miss Combs starts recruiting these individuals who she knows who have done jobs. These individuals in particular don't know Mr. Vendetti firsthand.
They botch their first attempt when they get a phone line outside before entering through a side window. As the thieves tear through the elderly man's belongings, Marciniak wakes up, bewildered by the commotion. One of the men strikes Marciniak so hard, his lip splits.
After he was hit, he was actually tied up in his bedroom. And at some point, he told me that he moved and that they kicked him. So he did the best he could to just stay still.
The robbers plunder the home for several more hours and make off with a coin collection, some belt buckles, a few guns, and Marciniak's safes, as well as the comic books, which Arlene Combs delivers to Rico Vendetti as morning breaks. But in the days that follow, the local news starts reporting about the violent robbery and subsequent death of Homer Marciniak in Medina. So Vendetti tells Combs he has no choice but to destroy the evidence. And since he can't keep the comics, he declines to pay her in full for the heist. As weeks turn to months, in Rochester, a woman for prostitution. Accused of selling her body, she decides it's time to sell out her friends. She tells Rochester PD that she knows who killed the old man in Medina.
About 1 o'clock in the morning, I received a call. Well, I was excited that this might be the break and jumped in a police car and went right to the Rochester Police Department. She told me the story, and I didn't tell her much, but she knew things about Medina and things about that night that I knew right off the bat that she had to have been involved. She drove the getaway car, according to her story. So I immediately put her in the back of my patrol car and drove her here to Medina.
Questioning continues, and the young woman mentions Arlene Combs, who is swiftly arrested. Combs, in turn, explains how her boss, Rico Vendetti, put her up to the job and gives up the other members of the heist as well.
You know, they say there's no...
2010 in Buffalo, New York, Rico Vendetti stands accused in federal court of running a racketeer-influenced corrupt organization, or RICO for short. Vendetti faces numerous charges. The RICO counts against him include racketeering and felony murder for the death of Homer Marciniak.
The federal racketeering laws, who he was and what he was about.
Vendetti is sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Arlene Combs also pleads guilty to racketeering and gets 20 years. Over the course of 6 years, 10 people are convicted for crimes connected with Vendetti's enterprise.
Even though these people did a lot of other crimes with a lot of other victims, most of those victims...
This crime would go unsolved. The officers of the Medina Police Department and myself were not going to let that happen. We were going to do all that we could to solve this crime. Homer was a good man, and he didn't deserve to die that way.